All right, I think we're on. We're live. How's everybody doing? All right. Eric, thank you for the kind intro. I appreciate that. I know that was a mouthful of what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes. So, you know, Mike, you and I have known each other for a little while, and I feel like every conversation we have, I'm able to learn something from you, which I think everyone else will benefit from today. So, with that said, I think maybe we jump right in. If you want to start, just explain a little bit about first yourself and what you do at Citi.
Sure. Yeah, and as you can see, even my title is a little bit of a mouthful, but I lead I just lead all paid media at Citi, and I also lead all of our U.S. creative and advertising and experiential marketing. Been at Citi for somewhere between 2.5 and 3 years. Some days feels like a couple months, some days feels like a couple decades, as most roles I feel like. And really proud of the work we've done. Happy to wax poetic on that a little bit with y'all.
Yeah, and so I'm Cody Hanlon. I'm one of the sales directors at Videoamp. For those unfamiliar, Videoamp is a data and software company built to increase the value of advertising by really evaluating how advertising is valued, bought, and sold. So with that, I think the ad tech space where Videoamp is and MarTech is something that you guys at Citi really do really well is involve ad tech in your overall marketing strategies. Would you mind just talking a little bit about that and how you guys really use technology to influence your strategy and your optimizations?
Yeah, sure. Simply put, technology is central to everything that we do, every step of the process. It's how we create our audiences, it's how we manage our audiences, it's how we buy, it's how we negotiate, it's how we optimize, it's how we measure. It's core to every single deliverable, every single process. The role of technology and ad tech and MarTech specifically, I would say, the way we talk about it internally is the glue between strategy and tactical execution, where your strategy is your strategy, right? You've got what you need to go out and do, agnostic of how you do it. And so your technology stack should sit in a way that helps deliver on that strategy, right? It's an enabler of the strategy. But at the same time, when it comes to tactical execution, in some ways, the technology will help define how best to tactically execute, right? So for example, measurement. We spent a ton of time talking about measurement. And have put a lot of calories into trying to improve our measurement over the years. And if you have an audience that you want to go after, right, you're looking at the various options that you have to reach that audience. And there's a particular platform or partner or environment that would represent maybe a measurement blind spot, right? You're not going to be able to show ROI for that investment. And so in some ways, the technology helps shape what the tactical execution should look like, right? So we kind of see it as sitting in between the strategic sort of vision and how we go to market tactically.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the things that, at Videoamp, we live and breathe this every day with the rapidly changing environment. You have to be swift, you have to be flexible in order to keep up with all these rapid changes. As a brand, how do you guys help navigate that to ensure that you're keeping up with all these changes and how that impacts your strategy?
It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
Sure. A couple of years ago, kind of around when I joined, we reshaped the team a little bit to make sure that we had the right level of focus on tomorrow, right? And part of it, and that's capability building, ad tech, and other things. And part of that was, we set a kind of a vision for what our ad tech should look like. And it was a platform agnostic vision, right? It was, what are the pieces that we need? What are the roles that they need to play? What are the outcomes that we need from that stack, right, at the various parts of where the technology sits. And then once we established that vision, then it became more about, okay, so let's look at each of those points in the stack, and let's evaluate different platforms, different offerings that are out there. And that's where you get into evaluations, and you start to establish, taking DSPs for example, right? So you might have kind of a workhorse DSP that does most of what you need to do, but then you have point solutions that are complementary where they provide something unique, like unique data or a unique supply or something like that, right? And then once we had the stack kind of set, with one of our guiding principles being as few platforms as possible, right? Minimize handoffs and whatnot. Once we had the stack set, then it just became about evolving, right? Building custom integrations and really building on the foundational stack, so that we can keep up with all the changes that we're all dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
I'm going to double down on that a little bit. Can you get even more specific? Any specific instances where a tech or MarTech product has really influenced your strategy and how you guys have adapted and how that's made a positive impact?
Yeah, for sure. I would say unquestionably the best example there is our measurement technology, where I think we've got a pretty amazing from-to story there, where we've kind of licensing different existing tech out there and then doing some custom stuff that sits on top of our own customer database and prospect database. We've got an identity-based attribution system or tool or model that really has become the source of truth for all of our media investments. And it plugs directly into our customer set, and so it can be used for more than just performance measurement, but it also will never tell a different story than what our actual business is telling us, which was really important to us. And we stood that up actually fairly quickly in kind of an MVP capacity a couple of years ago, and have just since iterated. And then actually one of the biggest challenges on the client side that I found was just driving adoption for how central media actually is to the organization and to the business performance, and the connectivity that media and media performance has to all the different tools and systems that we as a company use, right? That we use to report to Wall Street on for our quarterly earnings, and so that adoption piece actually took longer than I probably originally had scoped it out for. But it's been a couple of years now, and we've got a really powerful source of truth that we're just continuing to iterate on top of. And as changes in the marketplace come, if we don't keep iterating on top of it, building new integrations and finding new ways to keep it relevant, obviously any piece of technology becomes a bit antiquated. So that's kind of the focus right now, is just keeping it bleeding edge.
Sure, I think we can all agree measurement is critical, especially with all omnichannel marketing, especially that you guys are doing. Segue into that, can you talk a little bit about how you establish your media KPIs and then what relationship that has with the actual business outcomes that Citi's trying to
Yeah, sure.
achieve?
Really, the short answer is they're one and the same. Everything that we do in media, in advertising and creative, they all swim towards the same North Star of the business performance. So there's very little variation in the business results that our business needs to drive, and the media KPIs that we use to help achieve that. And sometimes, in order to do things like real-time optimization, we sometimes will have to establish diagnostic KPIs that help us with real-time management, so that we can ultimately achieve the broader business outcomes. But yeah, they're very much one and the same. We're a bank, right? So we have returns tied to every single dollar that we put in the marketplace, because that's what we do as a business. That's what we offer our clients, right? And so there's a super meticulous modeling out forecasting exercise where every single dollar knows exactly what it needs to achieve. And if we use media KPIs that are different than the business KPIs, that's really just internal talk, and that's us kind of, like I said, building kind of a real-time mechanism that helps us achieve ultimately what we're trying to do as a business.
Mike, I know you manage a fairly large team. I'm curious that as you have these clear-cut KPIs that are so directly tied to your business outcomes and your goals. When you think about things like culture and that performance mindset across your team, how do you really get them to buy into that and really lean into performance-driven marketing?
Yeah, culture is the right word. yeah, having a performance. So one of my first jobs out of college was on the media side and was very much in a performance marketing capacity, and that was something where I just never lost that wiring. And so every role that I've ever been in, tried to establish that type of a culture. It starts with enabling your teams, making sure everybody's data literate. I don't think there's a marketer out there who would say they don't use data, but like to be able to really look at like performance data and understanding, what are the important things you need to look at in order to make a shift or make a change or optimize. Even my creative team, they're like the minute that they put something into market, like they're dying to dive into the Excel charts and the performance and the Tableau dashboards and all that to see how things are performing. And so it's about a culture. It's about real clarity on the KPI and North Star, the business KPIs I was just talking about, and just set the destination and give people a runway and let them kind of work their magic. As long as there's clarity on where you're going and how you're going to get there, I think that's how culture is built over time.
I'm curious, how do you balance those short-term performance KPIs with your long-term brand building goals, right? That we know that Citi is actively involved in Global Citizen, Citi Field, and then obviously what you're doing from a performance perspective. So how do you balance that, and what advice would you give to everybody who also faces that?
Yep. It's a tough dichotomy, and it's one that, I think there's not a marketer out there who would say, I would like to choose between building a brand and driving kind of short-term performance. Like, I think everybody's answer would be C, all of the above. And so for us, it's about connecting the two and actually finding the relationship between things that you do that do both, basically. And it's, I think it's not necessarily, we do something to build a brand and then we wait for it to become performance. It's really a simultaneous thing. And when we go out and we try to secure the dollars to be able to do C, all of the above, we're not talking to CMOs who would love to do that, right? We're talking to CFOs and CEOs who are actually writing the check. And so I guess my advice would be think through the lens of what a CFO or a CEO would want to see, right? And I think hopefully every CFO and CEO would nod their head to say building a brand is really important, but I think if you were to give them the choice of, well, what about at the expense of, stronger short-term performance, I think that's where it becomes, there's a little more friction. So we've tried to really kind of connect the two, and that's where that measurement that I was talking about earlier became super important, because that allowed us the freedom to be able to do things and test things in a way that were measurable against our business KPIs that weren't always measurable that way, that we also knew were actually driving brand performance, brand preference, and reputation. So a lot in that answer, but I would say like to fight for the dollars, it's all about talking to the CEOs and the CFOs the right way in terms of they understand, not in our media jargon, but in terms of they understand with returns and investments and ROI.
Sure. I'm going to pivot a little bit to this next question, but relevant to, I think, everyone in the room. Just to talk a little bit about brand safety. So can you just explain a little bit about what that means to you, your team, and what type of strategies how that impacts your strategy, especially in the digital landscape?
Brand safety is critically important. I mean, we're a bank, and a big part of any bank's business is managing risk, and brand safety that's managing reputational risk, right? Which one could argue is risk of the highest severity, because if you compromise your reputation, that could take years to dig out, right? And oh, by the way, if you protect your reputation, then things like performance that we were just talking about actually becomes a little bit easier because you get fewer varying views on what your brand is and experiences. So brand safety is super critical for us. We take a very hands-on, opt-in, not opt-out. We have an inclusion list of properties and apps. We have the exclusion list that's on top of that for specific content areas, but it's gotten so complicated. I mean, brand safety is not what it was a decade ago. it's I just feel like you can't go a couple of weeks without having some article. This week is no exception, actually. But you can't go very long without seeing something pop up, some new category that we have to start thinking about. Made for advertising sites is, I feel like, the word du jour, or the acronym du jour, MFA. And so it takes like real dedication. And if you don't completely have your finger on the pulse, you're very much at risk for really bad stuff to happen. And honestly, I'd rather be, with a 200-year-old brand that I work with, I would rather over block. I'd rather block some of the good stuff if it means blocking all the bad stuff. And that's what it comes down to, is managing reputational risk. So.
Can I press you a little bit on that? Anything specific challenges that you guys have faced with brand safety the past couple of years? Especially when you consider your audience.
For sure. Probably a lot of the same challenges that many brands face. There's a particular media partner that we don't run media with right now. We have a very above board, kind of transparent relationship with that partner, and super clear with that partner on what needs to happen in order for us to kind of re-engage. I think that's really important. I don't think the opacity of we're just done is productive, but so that comes up from time to time, and that's happened to me throughout my career in different capacities. I think there's also something that actually caught us off guard, and fortunately we were I think we reacted really quickly, but the U.S. government, for instance, established a number of Russia-sanctioned, U.S.-sanctioned Russian sites, and then immediately after that there were articles by people who saw that action and then went out and tried to find all the advertisers that were actually on those sites before they could react, and so those types of things will pop up, right? You're always going to have people that are trying to stir the pot, and you just got to be on it. It can't be a night job. Brand safety's got to be a full-time, dedicated job.
Sure, I appreciate that. I think a lot of people don't do as well. Pivoting a little bit here too, specifically to Citi, I want to talk about how you guys built your in-house team. And I think that's something that you guys did a really good job of, and being able to find harmony between the agency and in-house. Can you just talk a little bit about those goals, and how you went about the building the team?
Sure, yeah. And we have an in-house team for certain things, and then other things we don't do in-house. But for what we do in-house, I think one of the better decisions we made along the way was being super clear with our agency partner what we wanted to do, when we wanted to do it, give them enough time to plan, and just keep everything really above board and put it all on the table. And I think that has really helped, not just kind of the process of moving things, but is also, I think, really, it's actually strengthened our partnership with our agency partners. And there's a lot of things that you might think you want to bring something in house, and you start to bring it in house, then you realize, wow, this actually has to be a hybrid model where we still need a partnership on outside of the company to be able to do this the right way. And I think because we were pretty kind of clear on specific swim lanes of what we plan to do in house, like I said, the timelines were pretty clearly communicated. I think our agency partner really leaned in. And in terms of the type of work, I think usually what happens is, I think the drivers for someone wanting in-house something either comes down to some combination of cost savings, speed, maybe quality in some cases. And for us, it was more cost savings and speed. And so we actually started from, when we started to pilot it, it was the more simple things, right? Not high production, creative shoots, for instance. It was the simple stuff. And at the end of the day, we have $100 that we're going to spend on agency fees in a given year, our external agency partner is probably going to want to use those $100. If there's $100 in the envelope, and it's not going to be 101 or 110 or 200, right? If there's $100 in the envelope, the agency's best interest is to have those dollars go to the most strategic, highest kind of impact programs as possible. And I think we've done a really good job of, I say we as in us and our agency partners, of finding the right things for us to do in-house in a way that strengthens the partnership, gets done what we need to get done. We probably saved a little money, maybe got faster over the course of some of that, but I really do think it strengthened the partnership with the external agency. I really do.
Is there any specific advice that you would share with marketers in the room that are considering in-housing? Any glaring pros or glaring cons that you think people should keep an eye out for?
A lot of people talk about the career mobility part of it and how that can be a little bit of a challenge for moving things in-house. I see it, but at the same time, I think there's another side to that coin where someone taking an in-house agency job, I think actually helps improve career mobility for anybody who wants to ultimately go client side. Because you're already kind of in the building, and you're still doing the agency management. People on my internal agency team, like, we talk about careers and stuff, like, they will literally say the words, "I really just want to stay agency side," even though they're employees of Citi, and so it's funny. I have to remind myself, I think there's opportunity. I think just as much as there is maybe limitation on the career mobility thing, and then what I said before about just being transparent with your agency partner about what you're going to be doing. I think just laying it all out there. Hopefully, you have a relationship that allows you to be able to be candid in that sense. And I think I cannot underscore enough how helpful it was for us in hindsight to just kind of throw it all on the table and be open about it.
Yeah, it sounds like the agency partners really leaned in, and you guys had a lot of collaboration in that sense. Can you just speak a little bit more about what kind of things culture you started between the agency and the in-house team, and what kind of things you implemented from the jump that really helped promote that collaboration and really helped that culture thrive?
Yeah, it was, I mentioned the word transparency and candor a couple times. But so putting that aside, I think then it was really getting crisp on roles and responsibilities, especially, projects that were kind of hybrid projects where there was a combination of internal, external people. Just clearly defining the roles, like right down to, so who takes this one to legal? Just it ends up getting into kind of painstaking detail, but it was really important because any ambiguity there could kind of derail the whole thing. So I think that was really important, just mapping out that whole process and being super clear on, we're going to be doing these things, but not those things. And, just like making it abundantly clear for all parties involved.
Excellent. Mike, that's all I got. Any questions from the group?
So great presentation so far. Just a few questions for you. I mean, you spoke a little bit about having a blind spot on measurement and what that looks like moving forward, and considering the rapid changes in the industry with privacy. I know how big tracking and targeting people with high household incomes is for folks in finance, because you want to market people who could open new accounts for you guys, right? So how are you guys looking to kind of get around some of those challenges in 2024, and what are some of the things that you're most excited about when it comes to solving that problem?
Yeah, so we've folded. So I think what you're mainly talking about is the importance of consent, which we've actually folded into our brand safety strategy. So we've kind of, everything we talked about on brand safety is about protecting the brand, but we think a very close cousin to that is, all the things that you do to ensure media quality, and we've folded consent into that. I think that's still kind of an evolving space, but it's definitely something that you said we want to be ahead of as opposed to completely behind. I think despite all of the dialogue out there about signal loss, I still think that there's like a little bit of fogginess on what that actually means. Like on a day-to-day basis, what does that actually mean for performance that I see today, and what that will look like tomorrow? I hope I'm not the only one making a fool of myself by claiming that, but genuinely, I feel like it's one of those things that we can do all the things that we want ahead of time to mitigate the impact. But when it really comes, like that's when we're really going to understand what this looks like. So, but on the consent side, like consent become, I feel like there was a point at which, it was like content is king and data is king. Like I feel like there's going to be like a consent is king thing at some point in the very near future, and obviously that's much more pronounced overseas than it is here right now. But it's something that we're absolutely prioritizing.
Thank you. Long-time Citi member.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Wondering, because it came up earlier in the day, just how are you envisioning the younger generations and like marketing to them, through your role, and how are you thinking of, that acquisition? You see a lot of the competitive set, skewing a little older, but how do we penetrate that younger audience?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So that's the future of our business, obviously, and over the course of the next several years, we're going to be going through this massive generational wealth transfer from the boomers to. So super important. I don't know that there's like a silver bullet answer, but we definitely are. We're thinking about that very much. Any bank has like its plan, capital P plan, forecasted for like 3 to 4 years out. And so as we think about, investments that we're going to be making or strategy shifts that might be, that's, those audiences are super important for the future of our business. We have a pretty diverse customer base today. Obviously, there's long-standing Citi customers like yourself. Thank you very much. But it's really important that we appeal to everybody, including the future core customers of our business. So yeah, it's super important.
I think that's our time. Mike, thank you.
Cody? Yeah. Thanks, everybody.